So in this episode, I'm going to share with you how I mounted the exhaust for this vintage modified race car. Hey folks, I'm Mike. This is KEI Fabrication. 2.5 years ago, we pulled what was left of this vintage open wheel NASCAR modified out of the woods, and we've begun the resurrection process. Here we are 45 years later, and this car is extremely close to returning to the track. I hope you like this stuff. Follow along, like, share, and subscribe, and go on the journey with us. Alright, I forgot to film this part, but what I did was I took those first set of tabs that I created and I cut the contour for the radius of the exhaust tubing, and that's going to be permanently welded to the tube extending from the header. And then the box tubing that I cut diagonally to end up with two brackets, and I used a hole saw to drill it in because, you know, it's a race car, it has to look like a lightweight bracket, and welded it to the frame. So the theory in the design of the bracketry is the muffler bracket and the exhaust tube bracket goes behind the frame bracket. So, and the tube goes into the header, it's expanded to the inside diameter of the header. So the plan here is, if I needed to take the exhaust off to remove the header, just undo these bolts and this would slide out off of these brackets. So I've put some welds in 3 locations around the muffler to the tube, and that is going to prevent this from slipping apart. So this is one solid piece, including the tailpipe, and the mounting is what actually gives it the opportunity to go into the header and stay there. So with it not being clamped or bolted between the header and the tube, you know, there's some room for some thermal expansion and vibration or whatever. That's the theory anyway. So I'm looking forward to getting the other side done and starting it up and see how it sounds with the mufflers on there. Now the mufflers aren't period correct. However, just about every track in the country nowadays requires a muffler of some type. So these are swap meet specials, and they're in good condition, so why not, right? Something else I really want to accomplish while the tires are on it and the car is at what I would consider ride height is what's called the Nerf bar. Now the Nerf bar is a bar that comes out nearly to the edge of the tire, kind of like the rear bumper. This is actually a Nerf bar for the corner that transitions into the rear bumper, because they became abundantly clear in the early days of racing with open wheel cars that if 2 tires touch, this one is spinning forward and the one that is coming at you and hits you, both rotations and sticky rubber is encouraging one to climb the other, and it flies off into the sends the cars up in the air and flipping and tumbling. So the intention is to have Nerf bars. Now this was around 1965 or 6. Could be even earlier, but I'm assuming it's around that time. The first round of Nerf bar was at the center line of the tires, and it just had the connection of the frame behind the front tire, kind of the middle of the doors, and then back just in front of the rear tire. That carried through to the following season, and this is a passenger side shot here and here. The driver's side shot, you can see that they actually added reinforcement. The reason why this is bent up is, even though this car had Nerf bars, the front wheel of this car made contact with another car, and it actually sent this one end over end into the outside of the racing facility into the parking lot in turn 4. The reason why this one is bent up is because it landed on top of the wall as it was flying through the fence and or tumbling down the track, and then this crushed in roof area, which is right here, actually landed on the top of the wall when the car was upside down flying out into the parking lot. So these Nerf bars, this one had some reinforcement, so there'll be something similar to that, and it's actually current modern day stuff is off this bar that comes down behind the sheet metal. There'll be a hole in the sheet metal and come down to the bar, and I have the exhaust. I'm going to put the exhaust on and make the Nerf bar protect the exhaust, and then this bar will turn and intersect the frame somewhere here where it's going to miss the wishbone suspension through its travel. So I've got some fabrication layout to do, but the best way to do that is when the car is at its racing ride height and trying to make it at the center height of the hubs, the spindle and axle centerline. So I'll run a string, and then I'll follow the string with the tubing and do the best I can to replicate what was done in the past, but also give it some little updated improvements. Alright, that's enough talking. I'm really going to get to work this time. So the connection to the chassis is some sacrificial tubing, and this slip fits inside, and there'll be a through bolt. It'll be a relatively small through bolt, almost like a shear pin. So the plan is that the smaller diameter tubing will distort or bend before the slip joint and not do some damage to the main supports of the cage. So there's a slip joint here at the back, a slip joint down here that's welded to the frame, and then there's another piece of tubing that provides the slip joint down here under the frame. So because all of the other slip joints are a perpendicular relationship, whenever you have an angled tube that is part of that same system, you can't slip it on there and then get everything else to line up. So the back side of that tube is cut away, so it provides the opportunity to slide on everywhere else. That will get a clamp that goes around the main rub rail or Nerf bar, and that'll clamp it to the bar that's permanently welded to the frame. So we've got plenty of clearance for the tire, both when it turns left and right. The suspension right now is trapped at ride height if the car was set on the ground, and we got plenty of room here, even if we get in a little bit of a skirmish and the rub rail is bent or tweaked. It should still allow the car to continue. So the overall intent is to have this flush with just about the outside of the tires. That's why the string line was in place throughout the fabrication. So the design intent of the rub rail, first priority is to keep the other car's tires off of your tires. Obviously we need to protect the exhaust from the tires of the other vehicles, and it is a sacrificial piece. It's the first thing to make contact with the other vehicle, so that's why it has the slip joints and makes it removable. So hopefully this car will never run into that scenario, because it's more of a parade and exhibition type thing, but you never know. So that's the story behind the fabrication of the Nerf bar, or otherwise known as a rub rail, on this vintage modified. Alright folks, that's it for this one. Hope you liked it. Give me a thumbs up if you did. We'll see you in the next video.